Good morning and welcome back. The Electoral College will cast votes for president on Monday, but right now there's a long shot push to try and deny Donald Trump the presidency by allowing electors to defy the results of their home state's election and vote for someone else.
Yeah, so we have a lot of questions about the Electoral College this morning because it feels like there's a lot of issues that are kind of looming out there right now. So we've invited Professor Mark Smith with the University of Washington here to sit on the couch and help us kind of sort through some of this. So let's start with this. Is there a historical precedent here to do something like this, change an electoral vote?
Yes, it has happened many times before. 2004, someone voted for a candidate they were not pledged to. Happened in 2000, 1988, 1976, a person actually from Washington. So over the last few decades, about every 2 or 3 election cycles, someone will go for a candidate who is not who they were pledged to in advance. And that is a perfectly legal and constitutional thing to do. So this isn't a matter of can you do it? It's more a matter of what would happen if a whole lot of people did that.
Yeah, and I think that's what is so interesting is what we're watching here in our state is Hillary Clinton won a majority of the electoral votes in our state, so our electorates are required to vote for her. And yet we still had people requesting that the fine be removed so that they could vote for someone else. A judge blocked that request. Where does that stand now? Where's that going?
Right. Well, I would say that the electors actually are not required to vote for her.
Really?
They're pledged to vote for her. And the norm is you do vote for who you're pledged to. But in terms of the original design of the Electoral College that the founders set up, the electors were supposed to have discretion. They were supposed to be able to go for whoever they wanted to. Starting in the early part of the 19th century, they started to pledge ahead of time, and then we tied that to the popular vote. But this is all by tradition. There is no legal requirement that they have to do that.
Except for the fine.
Except for the fine, but if you're willing to pay the fine, I mean, it's a $1,000 fine, so you might not want to.
It's an expensive change of heart.
If you want to do your protest vote, be willing to pay for it.
Interesting.
What about briefing the electors? There's been all this discussion in the last week or so about Russia hacking the election and how that may or may not have influenced things, and now there's this call to say, let the intelligence agencies brief all of the electors before they vote on Monday. Has that ever happened before? Is that a good idea?
No, that certainly never happened before. In terms of, for people without security clearances, how much detail you would want to give them, I think that would be a matter for dispute. It would have been better for this, frankly, to come out earlier in the campaign season, where you could have had more eyes on it and more people investigating it. The CIA, from what I've been reading, intentionally held back of saying we're not going to want this to come out until after the election. But I would have thought this is something you'd want to discuss before the election.
Where do you see this going from here?
Well, in order to deny Donald Trump the presidency, you would need 37 electors to violate their pledge. And these previous times I mentioned to you, it was always one person.
Oh, not
so,
a group.
It's easy to find like the one oddball who says, I'm going to violate tradition. To get 37 people to do that, it would require taking it up to a whole nother level. I know there is one Trump elector in Texas who has said he's not going to vote for Trump. Well, you need 36 more. And even if that could happen legally, constitutionally, but if it did happen, Trump supporters would say the election has been stolen. And because we do have this norm that the electors go for who they're pledged to. Now, they don't have to. They could pay the fine. And a lot of states actually don't even have a fine. I think it's about 29 or 30 states have no fine at all. So for them, just vote your conscience and it's free.
So really briefly, I know there's also a kind of a long shot push to change the Electoral College or even just get rid of it completely. I mean, reading it, that seems like an uphill battle, but what's your opinion on that?
Definitely an uphill battle. It's been talked about for, 50, 60 years, and came reasonably close in the 1970s. Actually, Richard Nixon was supporting getting rid of the Electoral College, and the party splits were different than they are now. If you do calculations on the Electoral College, which I've done, if you imagine kind of a split popular vote and you figure who has the Electoral College advantage, it's gone back and forth between which party has the advantage. Except the times when it advantaged the Democrats, it didn't matter. But the 2 times when it advantaged the Republicans, it did matter. In 2000 and now again in 2016. So I think a lot of Republicans, especially in elected office, are calculating that they benefit from the Electoral College and they would fight to replace it. And the only way you could replace it is if it kind of had an even distribution of who wins the Electoral College after losing the popular vote. Since it's happened now twice, benefiting the same party, you can count that party's probably going to fight pretty hard to prevent any change.
Complicated issue, so
Yeah,
we appreciate you breaking it down for us.
Yeah.
That helps a lot. UW political science professor Mark Smith, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate it.